This set of videos will dig into the concepts behind the games. What can we learn from the games that we play? Why did World War I happen? Well, there are numerous underlying events that led up to the outbreak of World War I on July 28, 1914. Four major causes for World War I include nationalism, imperialism, militarism, and alliances. An acronym of these causes is MAIN, but watching these videos in the order displayed shows how these concepts build upon each other. Merriam-Webster defines nationalism as loyalty and devotion to a nation. We'll start our discussion about nationalism with a pushback against nationalism. In the early 1800s, on the heels of the French Revolution, Napoleon Bonaparte conquered mainland Europe. After his misstep of invading Russia resulted in Napoleon's rapid fall from power, the leaders in Europe met and created the Concert of Europe to 1. Maintain the balance of power between the European powers, and 2. Stop the nationalistic uprisings within the European empires. They would even go so far as helping one another put down these uprisings, even though they would not be able to count one another among their friends. The Concert of Europe prevented more wars within Europe for the first half of the 1800s and was impactful in preventing many revolutions from being successful in 1848. This Concert of Europe broke down when Russia attempted to take what is now Romania in Eastern Europe from the Ottoman Empire in 1853. While they thought the European powers would support the attack on the Ottomans, the British and French viewed the attempted expansion of Russia into Europe as a threat to the balance of power that stood in Europe. To the surprise of the Russians, the British and the French joined the side of the Ottomans, thus turning the war into a war between the European powers. The Crimean War foreshadowed some of the brutal problems present in World War I, particularly when it came to old tactics being used with new weapons to the death of many soldiers. When the conflict in Crimea was over, the Concert of Europe was broken, opening the door to future nationalistic efforts in Europe. Two major examples of these nationalistic efforts were in Italy and Germany. Italy officially became a nation in 1848 with the creation of the Kingdom of Piedmont and Sardinia. After the Crimean War ended, Victor Emmanuel was able to get favorable terms for his country over their dispute against Austria for land in the north of modern Italy because the Italians had sent troops to fight alongside the British and French in the Crimean War. Over the course of the next 2 decades, they were able to add each of the independent states in the Italian peninsula to one unified nation, achieving complete unification of Italy in 1871. For Germany, the last of the Holy Roman Empire had broken up in 1806. Of the remaining independent German states, Prussia was the strongest and was one of the major European powers throughout the 1800s. In the 1860s, the Prussian leader Wilhelm I and his prime minister Otto von Bismarck began a campaign to unify Germany. Using a philosophy of blood and iron, with a strong emphasis on military strength, the Prussians fought successive wars with dominating victories over Denmark, Austria, and France. These wars fanned nationalistic pride throughout the German states, and the Prussians used these wars to draw the remaining German states to their cause and country. Germany was officially unified as an empire in the Versailles Palace in France in 1871. Once unified, Germany was the unquestioned, dominant, land-based military power in Europe. European powers had competing national pride and often attempted to show their superiority to the competing European nations. The other causes that will be discussed later in this series were partially motivated by nationalistic goals. Austria was an empire in Europe that contained multiple ethnic groups, many who wanted independence and to break away from the empire. Austria turned their empire into a dual monarchy with the Hungarians to maintain peace within their empire. But other groups wanted autonomy and independence in Austria. Particularly, the Slavic people in Bosnia, which were under Austrian rule, wanted to combine with their Slavic brethren in Serbia into one Slavic nation. This group exhibited national pride in their expectation and freedom in a hoped-for future country of their own. Nationalistic fervor was in full swing in the years leading up to World War I, By the time the war began, the powder keg of nationalism in the Balkans was ready to spark a wildfire.